lovelies, to the Ultimate Dance Business Podcast. My name is Deborah Laws, the dance business expert. My passion is to help you turn your passion into profit while guiding you to work less and earn more. I'm super excited to share interviews with you that I know will inspire and motivate you in your schools, as well as my solo shows where I shall be sharing some great tips and strategies. So if you love the show, please do remember to review, subscribe, and share it with your fellow dance boss friends. So let's get stuck into the business of dance. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in again. I have a beautiful guest today. I do encourage you guys to go and watch the video on YouTube because you need to see how gorgeous today's guest is. This is the beautiful Rosalia. Hello, Rosalia. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Deborah. It's so nice to have you, and you are being very, very generous. Thank you for that intro.
You're very welcome. And talking of intros, I'm kind of going to get you to do your own intro because I can never do people justice. So we would love to know who you are and what you do.
Thank you. So, sure, really delighted to be here with you listeners. I don't know who you are, don't know where you are, but I'm delighted to be here. My name is Rosalia Lazzara-Tilley, and I'm the founder and CEO of Manuka Media, which is a digital marketing and personal branding agency. And I'm also a keynote speaker. I am a podcast host myself, and I am also of late a #1 best-selling author, which still sounds so weird to say, but I am. Yes.
Oh, congratulations. And what is your book called and where can we find it?
So the book is called A Social Media Guide, and it is targeted at my specific audience and niche. So I need, as you do, and I'm sure many businesses do out there, I have a niche which I advertise on social media. So the book is directed to mortgage brokers and financial advisors, but I've got HR recruiters reading it. I've got people in software. I've got people in what else? Recruitment. I've got people in schools, like literally anyone can read it, and obviously replace the word mortgage broker with whatever it is that you do. But that is my niche, obviously. That's my main hub.
Yes. And, like me, obviously my main demographic is people that run dance schools, but so much of what I teach, probably 75-80% of what I teach is actually relevant for any business. So I'm guessing that's the same for your book, right?
Absolutely, yes. So obviously social media is such a whirlwind of things, right? So I have mastered how basically it's more relevant for business people. So whether they're a coach or a business owner or a marketer or a freelancer or an advisory type of business like an accountant or a mortgage broker, because it's for them that I've written the book, because trying to be on social media for personal reasons versus business is a whole different ball game. So what this book teaches you is how to use social media for business and for personal branding. So if you have a personal brand, whether you're in music or a dance teacher, or you have even a nail salon, you're a beautician, you absolutely need to use social media for your business, but it's finding out the strategies and the tactics that are different to what you would post, for your mates, basically. So yeah, it goes into obviously how to build your brand on social media and build a business and actually get income from it, because a lot of people think, oh, does it really work? Do you actually make any money off social media? Yes, you can.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really interesting topic, actually, because a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't really do Facebook. I don't really like people knowing my business. And I'm like, they don't need to know your business. You don't need to be anywhere on Facebook in terms of your own personal profile. You can have that completely closed. Nobody comes to it. You can have 5 family members. But you've got to have one in order to do the business stuff, haven't you? So then it's the tactics and strategies of what you use. So it's a tool for spreading the word, being visible. And that's obviously what you teach and what your book is all about. So there's a really early plug for you, everyone, to go and buy the
Oh
book.
yeah, well, yes. I mean, yeah, if you fancy having a read of that, yeah, it's on Amazon. But on that note, just in case, on the subject of having personal stuff on social media, just it's something I like to say that your audience might enjoy or might, feel happy to hear, is that there's a difference between personable and private.
Mm.
You absolutely do not need to put your private life on social media. So being personal does not mean you disclose private things. And so my whole philosophy and the strategies that I teach is around how to build that personality into your brand, and how to, because let's face it, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. That's never going to change. That's always going to be the case. And so how can I get to know, like, and trust you if I can't see you, if I don't know anything about you? Now, I don't put anything really drastically private about my life out there. Of course, I share that I'm married, and, I have a cat, and, I share holidays with my family, and I share that I'm Italian. Obviously, I share things about me, but obviously my private stuff remains private. So you can totally find that balance of personable versus private. So I just thought you might like to use that with your people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a case of manipulating that personal profile, isn't it? So that it works for the business. And, this is what you are expert in and what you teach. So if anyone's thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I hear that, but I don't really know how to do that, that's what you're here for. That's the kind of thing that you help and teach. And it's always so fun. You guys have got to go and check out Rosalia's social media, because she's always dancing in a hotel room or strutting her stuff. And, it's all about branding. And this is actually the first time I've seen Rosalia not wearing yellow, because your branding, you've got your yellow in the background there, but whether it's daytime, nighttime, like, I've only ever seen you in your branded, gorgeous, by the way, branded kind of colors. So you really do practice what you preach. Like, everybody knows you for your branding. It's such a strong brand. With regards to my listeners, with the dance school owners, how would you explain branding to them? Because for a lot of them, they assume branding is their logo and potentially the colors that they've chosen that their students wear, like the uniform. It's a lot more, isn't it? How would you explain it further?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. And obviously there is an element to that. Branding, of course, you just mentioned the yellow, right? So clearly color does come into it in certain circumstances, or it might be the icon or the emblem that you have in your branding. So for example, I have a lot of bees and honey in my branding, right? But doesn't mean I walk around like a honey pot to make sure that people actually remember who I am, right? But those little touches I can put in my merch, for example, or how I choose to decorate my office, or how I choose to do, anything. Maybe if I buy a water bottle, I'm going to buy it yellow, right? So yes, there is an element of color, and you definitely want to have that memorable brand palette that you want people to, and have that consistency that you want people to remember. But what is branding goes way beyond your logo, your website, and your font and color palette. Branding is a feeling. Branding is a perception that people have of you, and a culmination. Sorry, I couldn't even say that word. A culmination of your experiences, your expertise, your services, your values, everything that people can remember or say about you. So let's put it this way. So let's do a test, right, in your head. If you were to walk out of the room and someone were to say Rosalia or your name or Manuka Media, whatever words follow that question of the people in the room, that's what your brand is. So that's what people will remember. So yes, I wear yellow, but actually a lot of people will say energy. You just said fun, right? So that's what the brand embodies. And I really like the fact that I actually can relate to the whole dance school and dancing academy look and feel, because I used to be a dancer myself. I love dancing. And but you spoke about the uniform, right? The uniform in the business, or in the academy. And I can relate that to the uniform that I used to wear at school. So we used to have like a proper kilt, blazer. Now, the uniform, like if you spotted us in town of me wearing this kilt and, you know, my white socks and like the blazer, I was like, oh, cringe. Because by the way, for a curvy girl, kilts are not that flattering, trust me. Like that flared skirt, I was constantly trying to look good in it. But it wasn't just a uniform, it was a reputation. That uniform I was wearing proudly because it was all about reputation. So if you spotted us in town and you knew what school I went to just by the uniform, you didn't just think, oh, what an ugly uniform. You'd think, whoa, what a school, right? Oh, that's a strict school. Or that's a really disciplined school. Or that's a Catholic school. So it's more about your reputation than it is about the colours and the logo. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I love it for people to think about that first. And you know, what is it that we want people to feel? What is it we want people to say about us? What are our values? What is our ethos? What is the type of person that we want to attract? Because this is what we feel and know about ourselves, but we've got to then know how to portray that. And like I said, and you said, like the logo and the colors is just a small part of that. And it's interesting when you said about, you know, what people say about you, because we met for the first time properly recently, a speaking gig that we were both involved in. And, you know, if you'd said to me, okay, Deborah, you see me speak, what would you say my brand is all about? You know, and the experience I had of you through that, you know, I would definitely have said, oh, fun, vibrant, engaging, humorous, you know, fast-paced, energetic. Like those are all, that was my experience of what I saw when I was around you, and especially when I saw you speaking on stage. Are those words that you would love to hear about your brand?
Literally spot on, nailed it. Yeah, that's
Which
it.
means, yeah, which means I haven't nailed it. You've nailed it, because that's what I felt. That's what was being reflected. So for the dance school owners, I guess that's a great starting point, isn't it? What do we want? What do they want everyone to feel around, you know, when they come across their school?
Absolutely, yes. So obviously in the world of dancing and performing arts, there's so many vibes, isn't there? It's just a vibe. So really hit home at like, what do you want the students to feel when they walk into your school, right? What experience do you want them to have? What do you want them to tell their friends, right? What's that message that they say, no, I'm going to that academy because that's what I get from them, right? It doesn't matter if you've got blue or orange or pink in the branding. Ultimately, is the whole. I say my favorite quote, and you probably heard it at the event, which is, how you do anything is how you do everything. Now, if you see my office and it's got, you know, the most vibrant colors plastered all over the wall, like yellow, pink, and orange, and you feel energy, but then I come on stage and I'm all moany and droopy, that's not really embodying the brand. So you can color your logo or whatever color you want, but you're never going to express the feeling of that brand if you don't express it with everything that you do. So that's why it's less about the colors. Of course, I picked yellow because it's bright, vibrant, energetic. Pink is very sassy and fun and playful. So that's why I picked those colors. But if I'm not those colors, if I don't actually embody that experience for people, then it's just a color.
Yeah. And do you know, wouldn't that be a fab exercise for our listeners? Take away your logo and your colors, and what is left? Like, if you actually remove that from the equation, what would people sense and feel, and what would the words be? Like, I saw Rosalia speaking on stage. That was my summary of what I experienced watching this fab lady on stage. So if people came into your studio and did a trial lesson and were around your studio for an hour or two and then went away, and you had no logo and you had no colors, what would your brand be? What would they say about your school? What an awesome exercise for people to go and do.
That sounds fun. That could be done with coming outside of your like maybe doing some trial classes away from your studio, away from anywhere that feels branded as you, because where Deborah and I spoke was not branded as us, right? It was actually a venue and a completely different event that was not decorated with our branding. So we had to stand up. They almost felt really exposing, wasn't it? It felt naked. Like you stand up there and you're like, I'm not in my office. I'm not in my area of expertise here. I'm at someone else's event. I'm at someone else's gig. These people, I have no idea who they are. They are strangers to me. And I've got to, in about 20 minutes, get them to feel something new. So maybe it is like taking your dance school on tour, or going out to someone else's dance academy, or doing swapsy. I don't know how it works, but swapping something over and just trying to be outside of your hall and outside of your academy as many times as possible to go and put the energy out there and see what comes back in. And also be careful with like who you're hiring in your business as well. Like, how do they embody your brand? Because you might have a feeling and an energy about your business that nobody else has. But then when you start to hire people, are they living and breathing your brand as well? So that's also very key in terms of like the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great point. And I think sometimes we, as the business owner, put our heart and soul into our business. It's an extension of our personality. It's an extension of our own core personal beliefs. And so we just assume the rest of the world gets that. And our teachers are going to walk in and from the first day, they're going to be versions of us. And of course they're not. They have their own personal brand going on. They have their own values. And so that's something that has to be taught, isn't it? How would you help? Have you got any ideas or tips as to how you get team members to kind of embody and embrace your brand?
Yeah, wow, great. I think that is one of the hardest things to do, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Trying to find people that you are aligned with, trying to find personalities that you are aligned with is going to be hard. And that has been actually the biggest adventure Manuka Media has been on this year, where this year's the biggest year this year's the year that I've had the biggest team I've ever had. And that's been hard to try and find people who are either right for the job and right for the culture. There's some people you just have to accept that there'll be some people that are right for the job but don't necessarily embody the full culture. And you just have to be very eyes wide open that please do not set yourself up a task or a goal that you are going to find lots of mini versions of yourself and you're all going to be one big happy family and you're all going to have this, excuse the pun, but all singing, all dancing company that, everyone's really happy at. Okay. That's not going to happen. That doesn't exist. Okay. So what you have to be aware of is you as a leader and as a business owner, you have to learn the skills and of how to adapt to everyone's personality type. So there are personality tests, for example, that I've run with my team members. There's one called DISC profiling, so DISC. And I've done that so that I can be more accepting and more open to the way other people do things. Because trust me, I've been in a situation where I'm like, why on earth are they doing it that way? What I specifically said XYZ and you have done something completely different. So I had to start learning other people's languages so that I could then not judge them for it, but actually understand their place. So that's one way to build culture, because you as a leader, you are all the cultures. You are everyone's culture. You are everyone's language. So that's a good top tip that I would recommend. Another personality profile is more with colors. So like if you're a blue or a red or a green, so it'd be a good idea. I can't remember what that one's called, but just Google like color personality types or something like that. But hey, beyond test, what else could you do? Consistency works for everybody, right? So like I said, goes back to how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you say to your team, we're having a weekly meeting, don't skip it. Right? If you say to your meeting, if you say to your people, I need someone to deliver XYZ, actually honor everything that you said that you needed to do. That builds culture, that builds resilience, that builds consistency. So try and have a consistent routine, a consistent structure in your business that is something that everyone can get on board with, right? Not too difficult, not too like, yeah, slack, oh, don't worry about it if you can't make it. Build your social aspect as well. So without it being like forced, organized fun, but do try and have like that social element outside of work every now and again. Again, make that the norm rather than, oh, if we have time. So try and implement that into your business. And I really do like open and honest communication. So the way I've built my culture with my team is for them to get to learn about me as quickly as possible. So I'm very direct, I'm very fast paced at how I do things. And, I've said to my team, either you can wait all day for an answer from me if you want me to sit down with a cup of tea, really digest what you're saying and put a filter in my head. I have to physically put the filter in. If you want that, you'll be waiting a long time because I need to find a really peaceful environment for me to think properly. Or you can have really quick answers from me so I can help you speed up and do your job throughout the day as quickly as possible. But they might not be very like sugary, I might just be like, no, don't like that, see you later. So, I just have to be really fast and honest. So honesty for me and communication is the only way to build culture, in my opinion.
So I thought I would just share with you guys today the planners that I have produced for dance school owners, because these are flying out of Amazon like hotcakes. And if you don't have yours yet, then all you have to do is pop to Amazon and type into the search Deborah Laws, and all 3 books will come up. So the ultimate dance business planner I designed for you so that you had a little bit of a Deborah on your desktop. The planners are full of business training, tips, motivational quotes, things to do at the start of the month, things to do at the end of the month, ways in which you can plan out your marketing and your retention, and they are selling all over the world. So go to Amazon, grab your #1 best-selling Ultimate Dance Business Planner and enjoy mapping out the growth for your studio. Fabulous and wonderful tips there. And the other thing is, I often see people talking about, trying to create mini me's in the business. And I actually don't think that's the way to go, because there is only one you. Like, there is only one person that can be unique and be beautifully you. And so you're not trying to create mini yous. You're just trying to make sure that they understand and embody what it is that you stand for, isn't it? And especially in the dance world, we want our teachers to still be creative. We want them to be artistic. We're not trying to kind of stifle that. We're just trying to say, be you 100%, but just know what the company stands for. And in particular,
Definitely.
how you deal with certain situations, I think is important too, isn't it?
Yeah, so definitely, obviously, people need to understand the reputation and the quality of service that the academy brings, that the school brings, and of course, you're in a creative world, so everyone has their own personality. But to the point you just made previously about creating mini yous, you actually have to do the exact opposite. Like, I can't spell it out more than that. The total opposite is true. Is what you have to do, because if you only ever create mini yous, or if you hire people that are the same level as you or of the same skill set as you, your business will never grow. Your business will never change. You will never implement new ideas in your business, because you're only as good as you, right? And I always say, I want people that are better than me. I want to hire people so I hire people that are better at me at doing different things. So I'm out there on stage speaking in front of the camera, but I'm definitely not going to sit on the laptop editing a video from scratch, like with all the music. I can edit something, I can edit, but I just would rather someone else do it. Equally, when I'm, building a website, I know that the creative idea I want and the vision I want for that logo and that website, but my graphic designer is the one that's actually doing the pen to paper drawing, and then I'm giving the feedback. So hiring someone of the exact opposite skill set and the exact opposite personality is the only way to survive in business, because you need people that can do things that you can't do.
Yeah, definitely, to complement your skills and to help
Absolutely.
bring in the things that you're not skilled at so much. Really interesting that we ended up talking a lot about our team when we started talking about branding, because you can only do so much on your own, which I've discussed in lots of previous episodes. And there is a time when, if you want to continue to scale the business, the school, you're going to have to bring other people in. And that has to be part of the branding too, isn't it? And so it's interesting that we kind of ended up going down that route, but slightly changing the subject. Putting you on the spot a little bit here as well. Would you have any, like, off the top of your head examples of people or companies that you think have really nailed their branding?
Oh, that is a really good question. Okay, okay, again, this is off the top of my head. Like, I really love J-Lo.
Okay.
I guess it doesn't have to be related to my work or schools, right? It
No,
can
no,
be
no, no,
anyone.
no, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
anyone at all.
So yeah, so I love J-Lo's branding, because for me that symbolizes a business that has longevity, a business that has diversity, a business that dresses up in multiple different guises. Like, she's got a drink, she's got beauty, she's got skincare. And for me, it symbolizes, here's what branding summary is all about for her, is work ethic. So when I look at J-Lo, because she does all these things, I really resonate with her brand, because I work really, really hard. I know we all work hard, right? But I wasn't like the natural mathematician or scientist at school. I just work really, really hard to get good at skills, and that's what she embodies for me. So I really like her branding. Then you've obviously got people like Zara, or companies like Zara. Obviously, I love like the trendiness of Zara, but how predictable it is. Like, you can go to any store whatsoever and you feel like you've been in that store before. Like, that is really, really good, strong branding, because it's familiar. So I'd summarize Zara with familiarity. Who else can I mention?
But I also love the fact, from what you just said, it's the consistency as well, isn't it? You know
Yeah,
what you're going to get wherever you go. And I think that sometimes with dance schools, we can become a little inconsistent in certain areas, because of the
right.
the workload and the overwhelm and the everything else that most principals are going along. Sometimes they give a new student a fabulous onboarding experience, and other times the parent's lucky if they get told what time the class is, and doesn't get any follow-ups at all, because we're not always consistent with it. And I don't think people necessarily always put that down to brand, but your brand is your reputation, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah, so then Zara is a perfect example. If you model your business school on Zara, for example, the premises, how do you show up every single day? Do you have a regular cleaning system? Do you have a regular presentation system? Do you go in and you are given the same experience every single time? Um, and a lot of that stuff might today, I mean, you can set up systems for that kind of stuff, right? For scheduling timetables and follow-ups, and that's something again that we've tried to build into Manuka Media this year. So one of my team members was tasked with putting together all the systems and processes, and systemizing them, and actually automating a lot of that process that I was doing manually before. And it was really hard to let go of that, right? It was really hard to say, yeah, but that just takes me 5 minutes. I just do that for five. And they're like, yeah, but Ros, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You're
They
spending
all
so
add up.
much time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But like, it's comfortable, isn't it? So actually that comfort could sometimes slip into laziness, and then laziness slips into what, oh, oops, I forgot. And so we're putting that system in place so that everyone gets the same experience and that consistency. So when they come and work with Manuka Media, everyone knows what that is. And don't get me wrong, we're still working it out. Sometimes I'm like, oh, with every client, it gets slightly better and slicker because we're like, oh no, I preferred it this time round. Like, this is much better. And so, even with a podcast, like we're constantly streamlining how we invite people, how we get their information, so we want that for everybody. So yeah, maybe Zara as a brand is a great example for business, for dance schools, because it is so consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, to talk about systems and admin and consistency in the same breath as branding is not maybe something you would normally think of, but it's the reputation, isn't it? It's a massive thing, branding, which is, now we go back to saying it's more than just a logo. Of course it is. We could talk all day, couldn't we, about
Yes.
what branding is. And so I'd love to ask your opinion, talking about, the fact we could talk all day, and maybe it would be good if we could find ways of creating our branding and delivering a consistent brand easier and quicker. What are your thoughts, good and bad, on what AI is doing with branding? Because I saw a post yesterday from somebody that was asking, what's your opinion on? And she had 8 logos, which were all quite beautiful, actually. And she said they were literally created by AI in 2 minutes. What is your thought on AI in terms of branding?
That's an amazing question that clearly is being explored every single day, because we don't know what's happening with it. It's changing so fast. It's obviously been around a lot longer than we know it has. We've started to play with it. That's what we're doing. But it's definitely been around for a lot longer. My team have I say fully, to the extent that we know, embraced AI in our business. So rather than fearing it, we've absorbed it. And we use AI to simply make our lives a little bit easier. Because, for example, I compare it to when we used to send emails one by one, or letters or stuff in the post, right? Then one day, companies like MailChimp came along, an active campaign, or, a mailing system that basically you can click send all, and you're like, oh, what, like revolutionary. You can actually click send all. And that's exactly what's happening in certain aspects with AI. Like, for example, repurposing your content, and, you have a long form video and you can chunk it down into mini pieces of video. Now, traditionally, a videographer would spend hours editing to try and get the perfect clip, whereas today we use an AI tool that actually you type in the keyword that from the podcast or from the video that you want to extract, and it will find that clip. However, where AI isn't helpful is that it can extract a random sentence from the podcast, so it's done what you wanted it to do, but it doesn't make any sense, because you're like, well, that hasn't got a start or a finish. So that's where our human team actually look at those clips and say, right, no, it's not quite right. We need to go back in and edit it accordingly. So I absolutely would embrace AI from that perspective, especially when you're running a school or a business and you've got multiple clients and multiple students. You need certain systems like Zapier, ClickUp, CRM systems, all that kind of good stuff that helps you automate some of the services. So it might be newsletters, it might be, important urgent updates, it might be, a person's timetable or report. So you want to make sure that you've got that kind of stuff. I've also seen out there, Deborah, the scary sides of AI, where people are replicating their faces and their voice, and it can be used in the most awful ways. But then I also play those things back, and I'm like, okay, it's not perfect. So you can tell like the lips don't quite sync up with the audio. And obviously this question comes up a lot with, financial advisors. So how would you feel if a financial advisor was selling you life advice and pension advice but they were doing it through a bot.
Mm.
Like,
It would feel a bit weird, wouldn't it? A bit disingenuous.
right, yeah. So I'm thinking, yes, you can, sir, or miss, or whoever. Yes, you can create a bot version of your face and do videos and never have to record yourself ever again. But when you're online and the bot is speaking, we're trying to make your business more human and more personable, and you're doing the exact opposite, where you're actually making yourself a robot, and now your customers are hearing about pensions and investments from a robot. How is that ever going to help build trust? So yeah, AI is still, in my opinion, never going to replace, that is my humble opinion right now, it's not going to replace the human element of building relationships and building trust with an actual person.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, who knows where it's going to go, but I think at the moment we're all going to get massively invested in AI, play around with it, learn how to do incredible things. And then at some point we're going to go, but do you know what? I'd rather actually have a meeting in person and a coffee. And I think that social media has done this to a certain extent. You know, everything's gone online, everything's digital. And I think to some extent, we're almost going back to, do you know what? Let's have a proper network meeting and all meet up because,
Yeah.
you know, after a certain period of time, the fun goes out of it. We realize that actually you're missing that human connection. And let's just go back to the old fashioned way of having a cake and a coffee. And I feel like we're going to go mad with AI for the next few years. And then I'm hoping before the robots take over the planet. I do think this is a real fear. We won't go down that route today. I'm hoping that we'll go back to, well, do you know what? It's actually nicer if we just pick up the phone, you know? So
Yeah.
it's going to be
It's very similar
interesting.
to Zoom. So I used to use Zoom 11, 12 years ago, and no one really knew about it, right? And I used to use it back then because I was talking to people all over the world, right? Um, and over lockdown, which is when I started Manuka Media, we obviously very quickly realized how much we needed technology to advance at the time.
Mm.
But the most we could do was, you know, virtual calls and Teams and all things like that. So there is a space and there is a place definitely for going more digital and you know, having more bots helping us do stuff. But the minute we got let loose and we could go, you know, we've had a taste for what it's like to not feel connected. You know, mental health has gone up. You know, divorces went up as well. I'm not going to mention any specific quotes because I can't think of the stats right now off the top of my head. But everything, you know, mental health and divorces went up. You know, the education system went down. You know, people went back to school. Children went back to school and started struggling with their exams because they didn't have the support. So that's what happens when humans aren't connected, because we lose that love for that connectivity. So actually I'm going more the other way. So a future vision for the business is actually to do more in-person events.
Yeah.
I absolutely do think that's the way to go, because a lot of my clients see me on Zoom and online, and it's time to, you know, give them a hug. So I do try and give them a hug as much as possible when we actually get to see each other in person. So yeah, I'm definitely all for the in-person stuff.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's, you know, that's quite apparent if anybody ever has the pleasure to come and see you talk, because, you know, you're really alive when you're on that stage. And you're not going to get anything like the experience with Rosalia on Zoom, as beautiful and bubbly as you are, than you are if you watch her running up and down the stage with boxing gloves on and doing crazy things, which is highly entertaining as well as delivering a great message. So
Energetic,
yeah,
yes.
100% see you being out there in person. But yeah, it's interesting to get different people's kind of perspective on where it's all going.
Mhm.
There's just one thing I wanted to kind of just pick your brains about really today.
Sure.
Within the dance school kind of industry, there are many different types of schools. And you could put some into different brackets, you know, the competition schools, the recreational schools, the street dance schools, the more traditional schools. You know, there's lots of different types of schools. But One of the biggest things I think that that my listeners struggle with is there's a lot of competition around them, and when they try and kind of analyze themselves, they say, well, we kind of teach the same classes as the other 10 schools down the road. And I say, well, you have to have your USP. You have to have something unique about you that makes you stand out. And that's where they get stuck. They're like, we don't know what our USP is. Like, we just do what everybody else does. How would you, as a branding expert, help someone to find their USP?
Wow. Yes. Oh my goodness. This is actually part of my favorite job, but one that I can't teach how to do it, if you know what I mean. Because I can give a graphic designer a brief for a logo, or a website, and then they go off and do it. But like, again, this is not a formula I'll have to expand on it and develop it, maybe even write a book about it one day. But this is what I do. So when I have a new client that comes on board and says, listen, like exactly the same as a school, why should I come to your school versus the other school? That is the exact same problem, exactly the same situation for financial advisors and mortgage brokers, because there are thousands of them, and you think, well, why should I come to you versus the person down the road? And it isn't until I have that face-to-face or online discussion with them, and I just interview them. I literally just get them to speak. I ask them questions about, why do you do what you do? So obviously, exploring the why, and I'm not going to take credit for it. There's the greatest of them all to help you explore your why is Simon Sinek, start with why. But I use his teachings and I actually put the person through it. I've got books up there, things like, building a story brand, TED Talks, all that kind of stuff to help me understand who you are. And then I'm just writing. And then in the end, I end up repeating back to that person what they've said to me. And they get to listen to themselves for the very first time. And this is why I'm saying it's really hard to teach it, because I'm listening to you like I've never listened to you before, because I don't know you. So it works best with strangers, because this is the first time and you can't hide, right? My husband says that I have a very, very good BS-ometer, if you know. I don't know if I can swear on this show, but yes, I have a very good BS-ometer. So I can spot the BS and I know how to call it out. And I know also where you are at your best, where you light up, because I'm watching you speak to me and I'm like, that's where it is. And then that's when they react and go, oh my God, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that before. And that's what we then run with. So whatever that is, it might be, because you were bullied at school, right? And you never measured up to anything. And people said you would never make it. And actually what your school stands for is anti-bullying, right? So maybe you're there to give people a safe space. Okay, now that's a theme. Giving people, so your school is actually a safe space for body positivity and for well-being. Well, that school down the road just does street dance. You're now the school that fully embodies mental health and body positivity. Now that's a brand versus, we offer street dance, ballet, jazz, tap. That's just a list of services, right? That's how I would coach a school into finding, does that help in a way?
Hugely. And I love what you've just said there. And I think, I don't know whether you also suggest this, but actually asking your current customers, how would you describe us? What do you think we are? Because they're the ones on the other side of it, aren't they?
Yes.
And it's quite a beautiful process too, isn't it? Because they're going to say probably lots of really nice things about you. And like you just said, sometimes you kind of go, oh, are we that? Well, actually, yes, we 100% are that. And it could be something that is important to you, like that suggestion you said about the bullying. And I've done, I do a process with some of my clients where I help to elicit their values and their why. And very often the values that they end up with are from their own experiences as a child that they didn't want other children to feel or experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that that is their USP. They just think that that's what we stand for. But that's a USP, isn't it? And that can be put out there as your USP.
That's a story. And absolutely, Deb, it's amazing that you go through that with schools, because you often think, okay, well, we just set up a business, a school, that's what you do. The doors open at 8, they shut at 6. Absolutely not. You know, dancing is an expression, dancing is a feeling. And I have always been a dancer, but not in the classical sense. Like I've never done ballet or things like that. And actually, here's my philosophy or my interpretation of dance. I never did ballet because I was always the biggest girl and I was always a bigger girl, and I just felt like ballet at the time, 20 years ago, 30, it wasn't welcoming to me. I was really short, I was a bit chubbier, and I just didn't feel like the other beautiful blonde girls that were in the class. So guess what, I found more expressive ways to interpret the dance vibe that I had inside of me. So I went more towards like the street and also the Latin. Like that's where I really found my home, where I did like ballroom and Latin American. I really thrived doing things like salsa and cha-cha and jive. Why? Obviously, you need a lot of energy to bounce around with those, but also because I felt like I could be myself in that dance. I felt like I could. You could go wrong. Like in salsa, you can totally go, like you can just like freestyle and do your own thing as well as follow the lead. And so again, that's an expression, that's an interpretation of that. So absolutely, the more emotion and the more feeling you put into your school, the more aligned you're going to be with your students, because people find the love of dance because of their emotions, because of their feelings. So I think that is the USP. Is like, what emotional feeling do you want your school to help people feel?
And that really takes us a lovely full circle back to the very first question I asked you, which is, what is branding? And you said it's a feeling.
Yeah.
Literally gone around in that lovely, beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. I know this is going to have been so helpful to so many people today, and especially those people that have heard this, USP business term thrown around and don't really know what it is, and they certainly don't know what theirs is. Maybe that's something to go away and reflect on after today's podcast, to really think it through, and then look at your branding and say, now does our branding grow out of that? And if somebody's thinking that their branding is a little bit stale, or, oh my gosh, I don't think I really knew what branding was before I heard Rosalia speak today, should people change their brand? Like, once you've got your logo and your colors, like, what's your thoughts on, should that stay the same because people get to recognize that, or should it get refreshed and updated?
Yeah, great question. And I'll speak from personal experience that I have absolutely rebranded, not even 2 years into the business. So I'm 3 years now. But when I first started out, I didn't have the budget or the kind of vision that I do today for the business. So I started out with, a little logo and, a good enough website. Case in point, you do not need to have a perfect logo or a perfect website to build a phenomenal business, because people got so invested in me and the mission that I was on that if they visited my website once, that was it. Like, that I wasn't going to let that hold me back. So for a good solid 2 years, I just built my business with the branding that I had. I had a different company name, everything. And then before it got too far, so I was like, look, this is going somewhere. And before it gets like 10 years in, I really want to rebrand earlier rather than later. So I chose to rebrand, solidify the colors, the logo design. I changed name. So I did do a whole complete rebrand, and it was definitely worth it because it stood out. So that's another positive reason to rebrand, by the way, because it gives a whole new thing of people to talk about. So when you rebrand, everyone, it's just like a new thing to look at. It's just something shiny and new, a conversation point. So that's definitely a definite positive. If you already have like a solid name and a solid reputation, and you don't want to completely like change name and everything, refreshing your logo to suit, all these new things that you've learned, all this new feeling that you have. Maybe your company has taken a different direction. Maybe you started it 20, 30 years ago and actually you do need a refresher. Absolutely, you definitely need to refresh it. Even if you keep the name the same, but you just modernize the design
Yeah.
of it 1000%. Yes.
Yeah, I see. And I apologize to my own listeners now. I see some pretty shocking logos that have been around for 30 odd years. And they're so shocking, it's shocking. So,
That's a
like you
good
said,
way to put it.
you don't have to change
It's
the
like a
name.
talent. It's like, wow, you've managed to achieve that kind of factor with your logo.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
However, Deb, if someone's brand, sorry if I interject there, but if someone's brand and ethos and the whole USP is we do it the old school way and we are traditional and not, yes, keep it as old as you like, because then that is actually very aligned with who you are. But you can actually still make modern logos look vintage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about design, is that if you want that look, if you want that feeling, there is a difference between, oh no, that is actually really old, versus, oh, that's got a really retro, or that's got a really traditional, like academy vibe, to your logo. So yeah, it doesn't cost too much to just give it a lick of paint. Do you know what I mean? Like just
100%.
refresher.
Yeah, and there's a difference between, old and vintage and representing, maybe your school is third generation, 60 years old. There's a difference between that and just being really naff.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going for the refresh to get rid of the naff, but we can keep the rest of the feel. Rosalia, it's been so much fun. I love to finish each episode with a few silly quick fire questions.
Okay.
So are you up for me just throwing some questions at you and you coming up with the first thing that comes up into
Oh
your
my
head?
goodness, yes. This is like, I hope this isn't going to be like a Freud analysis where you now recognize my deepest, darkest thoughts, but yeah, or that I'm
It's
sick. I'm actually sick. But anyway, no, go for it.
it's really not. It's not that deep, but that's a good idea, though. I might get that
I
ready for the
know,
next
like
one. So,
holding up a picture saying, "What do you see?" And I'm like, "Oh, a dark circle into the night." You're like, "No, that's just."
no, it's literally going to be, and here we'll go. We'll start with the first one. Favorite dessert.
Oh, macaroons.
Favorite actress.
Meryl Streep.
Favorite holiday destination.
Oh, got to be my hometown, Sicily.
Okay. Somewhere that you haven't yet been on the planet that you want to go.
Oh, South Africa, Japan. Yeah, one of those two.
Okay. Something that's on your bucket list that has got to happen before you hit 40.
Ooh, before I hit 40, gotta have a baby.
Oh, that's a lovely one.
Oh,
And if you could hang out with somebody from history, so they're no longer here, and spend 15 minutes with them, who would it be?
oh my God, I've done something like this before. Oh, no, wait, they're still alive. I just nearly killed someone off.
Don't jinx them, please.
Oh, no, I'm not going to say it out loud. Oh, do you know, this is going to sound really, really odd, but I'd bring back Jesus.
Okay, okay. You'd have a few questions for him.
I do. Okay, guys, think about leadership, right? What better leadership than freaking Jesus, okay? And also, I like using that example because whether you believe in it or not, obviously Jesus was actually real, like documented, died on the cross and everything. But whether you believe in the religious aspect or not, that's a whole other story. No judgment here. But from a physical character, right? He was named and shamed, abused. He was like, disowned, and he only had 12 friends, right? I really relate to that, right? So when you're on social media, you want to be famous, don't you? You're like, oh, I want loads of followers, I want loads of followers, I want loads of followers. Well, look what can be created with just a few followers, okay? And I actually teach that from a social media perspective. You do not need to be famous on social media at all to have a successful business or to have a successful brand. It's just knowing a few people who truly love and embody what it is that you do. And then it'll grow from there. So yeah, Jesus.
So we'll bring back Jesus. Okay. Slightly different one. If you could hang out with someone that is still alive for 15 minutes, who would it be?
Okay. Either Michelle Obama or Oprah.
Oh, Oprah's mine. We're going to have to
Oh,
get together. You'd be amazed the number of people that say Oprah. So I feel like we all need to get together
yeah.
and
Then we'll do a party.
get her on a podcast all together. Last one. I won't put you through any more misery. Favorite business book?
Oh, that's a good one. So, other than my own, obviously,
Of course.
if anyone's watching the video version, you can see on my shelf there is Diary of a CEO on there. So I do love a good old Stephen Bartlett. And then obviously I've mentioned Start With Why, The Secret, even though it's not exactly a business book, it was what opened me up to personal branding. So I highly recommend that. Yeah, that's my
Brilliant.
list.
Fabulous. We got 3 for the price of 1 there.
Yeah.
And I do, talking of Stephen Bartlett, I do pinch one of the things from his podcast, or I have started to recently, which is to get a question from the previous podcast guest to pass on to you. So your question that's been passed on is, if you could have any career and know that you couldn't fail, what might you do that you're not doing now?
Oh, see, I've answered that question different ways many, many times in the past. Um, Trust me when like right now, I am literally doing the answer that I given a while, like years ago. So today I'm doing the answer that I had given.
Brilliant.
Um,
Love
yeah,
that.
so I definitely want to go with now, like, empowering people, speaking, building voices, building brands, ruffling some feathers in industries, really getting people to like be unapologetically themselves and be really expressive. But then I love traveling. So if I had to like answer for my future self, what I would do different is I'd love to combine my like passion for cultures and languages and my ability to speak languages, and then just like travel all over the world with my guests.
Oh, there we go. Watch this
Yeah.
space in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you.
been so much fun,
It
Rosalia.
really
And
has.
if anybody wants to come and find Rosalia, go buy her book, and you can check her out. What's your Instagram handle? Where do we find you?
So there's two. There's Manuka Media, and then there's Rosalia Lazzara, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and also LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to connect. I'd love to hear from you. If you did hear me on the podcast and you do connect, please say I heard you on the podcast with Deb, because I would love to give you a big virtual hug if you're new to my network.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, my darling. And I look
Thank
forward to seeing
you.
you soon.
Thank you, darling. See you later. Bye.
Bye. So I wanted to quickly tell you a little bit about Showtime Circus. This is run by my good friend Jess, who has created an incredible circus bolt-on franchise for your dance school. Because aerial and circus performance skills has become a really desirable skill set for choreographers and casting directors. And so Showtime Circus offers the opportunity to buy a franchise package, which will give you all of your necessary equipment, training from experienced staff, syllabus plans, ongoing support, and business support to launch your new franchise. It will really energize your school with increased revenue streams, new student opportunities, and of course, bring all the fun of the circus to your school. So do go and visit showtimecircus.co.uk to find out what the new buzz is around circus skills.